The Manilow Method podcast is a production by Logan Allen and me, Barry Harris. Now, let's start the show.
What is going on, everybody? I am Logan Allen, that is Barry Harris, and you do not know how excited I am to say these words right now. Welcome back to another episode of the Manilow Method. We have been on a very long break just trying to get our thoughts straight and figure out how we want to proceed with this show, and we have landed on how we're going to do it, and I cannot think of a better album to talk about for our first episode back. Today we are talking about the newest Barry Manilow album, What a Time. Now, today is Monday. The album just came out on Friday. That means this is about to be a very different type of episode than we're used to filming on here. Barry, explain to the people watching and listening why that is.
Yes, so for those of you who don't know how we produce our program, we tape them ahead, and we have lots of time to edit and research. This is particularly unique because we are taping this on Sunday, June 7th. The information is very fresh. It's rapidly changing as Manilow does more press and interviews, and we learn more. So typically we try to give it a lot of time to let things digest, but this is such a special moment. This is only the third time in my lifetime, only the second time, Logan, in your lifetime, that Barry Manilow has released an all-original album. This is such a special moment that we had to acknowledge it in this way, so we decided to go ahead and produce a program. This is going to be a lot more raw, and we are still digesting all this, all of these amazing songs that are on this brand new album. It has been a little bit more than 48 hours since Logan and I have actually heard the tracks for the first time, though those that were not previously released as singles. We knew those ones, but it was quite an experience. And throughout the program, for those of you who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube, we're going to drop some clips. We actually, Logan and I, went on camera and we filmed ourselves listening to the album for the first time. And there were quite a few interesting moments, and we'll highlight those as we go. But Logan, this is a unique episode. I'm not sure if there'll be any others like this, but this is such a wonderful and monumentous occasion. This is the album that us fans have been waiting for. This album is an instant classic, and judging by the reaction that we've been reading from you, our dear viewers, this album is so diverse in its styles that this album is not hitting people the same way. Everybody has a different favorite song, and I think that speaks to the depth of Manilow's artistry. So this is definitely a great album to give the Manilow Method treatment, do as deep of a dive as we possibly can this early on in its release cycle. So let's get into this.
I think it's very important to mention that not only did we log on and find out we were wearing the same exact shirt today without any planning, I think this is going to be a great episode for that reason alone, but it's important to mention that we have listened to this album for as much time as you have, which means for this episode, your point of view is just as important as ours, just as every other episode, but this episode, even more, we want your opinions on this album, because Barry and I, every single day since this album has come out, we've been changing our thoughts. We've been formulating new ideas and connections, and it's very much still being molded, our view of what this album is. So we would love to hear from you what you think of this album, and if you agree or disagree with the views that we're about to lay on you. So Barry, let's dive in, shall we?
Yeah, so this album has come out, and I have here physical copies. This is vinyl. Doesn't it look beautiful? This picture, I must say, is absolutely stunning. When this album artwork was unveiled, I mean, we were stunned because Manilow has said on record that he hates posing for photographs and for album covers. He hates doing that. He mentioned that when he was making the Greatest Songs of the 50s album. So usually there'll be something artistic like the 15 minutes cover where it's, you know, it's a piece of art but doesn't properly feature the artist's photograph. And then there's others like My Dream Duets, where that particular album cover was taken during a live concert. There was a candid photo taken. But this is an actual posed photo, and it just looks, like I said, it looks stunning. And so that's why having a great vinyl copy is so beautiful. And there's a big gatefold with a huge photo in the middle. There's a big poster inside of this, and here's the back cover of the vinyl version. And for good measure, I also have the standard CD issue right here. There's no title on the album, but if I show you the spine here, it does put the title here on the spine inside of the jewel case. Now, there is some different editions of these versions, and what I will say is we actually, funny enough, we don't have all the versions yet. We've actually yet to hear all of the bonus tracks, so just as a little FYI, we're going to save a discussion about those bonus tracks for a bonus episode that we'll put out whenever we're able to do so. So we'll go into more depth at that time regarding the different editions of this album. In case any of you at home are wondering if we're going to talk about that, we'll hold all of that till a later time. But this is just going to be all about the 13 regular tracks on this album. And this really feels old school, having vinyl and CD and digital release. So it's yesterday is meeting today in a very significant way.
I like it. And speaking of yesterday meeting today, let's talk about track 1 of this record, Once Before I Go. Now, we're going to do this a little differently. If you've seen some of our older episodes, I list everybody who played and arranged and recorded and produced on the album right up front. But because this album has such a plethora of people working on each song, and they're all different people, I'm going to list people as we hit each individual song, so you really know the groups of people that went in to every song. So we're starting here with Once Before I Go. This was the first single from this album. It dropped in the late summer, early fall of last year. And this is, I believe, the song that was meant to open this album. Barry and I were actually lucky enough to be in Las Vegas when they were taping the music video for this, so we got to see that process, and I don't think we actually ended up in the final take, but you can believe it, we were in the room. I promise you, we were in the room when it happened, and it was so much fun to see Manilow. We talked about this on the preview episode we did on this album. It was so much fun to see him crawl into the song, and it was so much fun to see just how he works behind the scenes, because that's not something we get to see very often. So we were very happy that that experience ran a little long. It was a few hours long, and we were very excited to be able to get an inside look at that process like we did. Barry, this song is very emotional, it's very deep, and it kind of sets the tone for what this album is going to be. He said in the preview video he posted he's a sucker for songs about looking back, and that's what this album is. How do you think this song sets up what we're about to get with the rest of this record?
Yes, and just a reference for everybody, the week before this album came out, Barry Manilow published a video on his YouTube channel where he gave a preview of this album, and he gave his own commentary on these tracks that are on the album. And we actually encourage you to go watch that if you want to hear from his point of view some of his recollections of these songs. And Once Before I Go, I have to say, this is one for the ages. You said it best, Logan. This is the perfect song to begin this album. So some backstory for those that don't know about this song: was written by Peter Allen and Dean Pitchford, and Barry Manilow actually had Peter Allen play it for him after Peter Allen wrote Once Before I Go. Barry Manilow loved the song, but he felt that he wasn't mature enough to be able to sing a song like that. And flash forward many years, Clive Davis, the president of Arista Records, who signed Barry Manilow to his label and paired him with so many of Manilow's hit songs like Mandy, Weekend in New England, I Write the Songs, Looks Like We Made It. Pretty much all of the hit songs that Barry Manilow has had that he did not write were suggestions by Clive Davis. And one day, Clive called Barry and said, "Do you know that song, Once Before I Go? I think you should record it." And what's really amazing about this is now a bona fide hit. It charted in the top 10 of the adult contemporary charts. And it's amazing to think that 50 years on, Barry Manilow and Clive Davis's collaboration continues hitting its high marks. It's unbelievable. And so when I listen to this song, you can tell that Manilow is deeply connected to the emotion of this song. Because when it came out by Peter Allen, it had a lot of mortality associated with the lyrics. And it was actually used in the Broadway musical The Boy from Oz, which is a musical about the life of Peter Allen. And Once Before I Go is really given a poignant place in the musical because it comes as he is in the final stages of his life. Unfortunately, Peter Allen tragically passed away from AIDS, and that was depicted in the musical. And Once Before I Go was the song that marked that moment. So there's a lot of emotion associated with this song. And another memory associated with this song is that Alex Trebek, who hosted the game show Jeopardy, when he passed away, they had still some episodes that he had taped before his passing that they were airing posthumously. And when they aired the final episode that he taped, they played the soundtrack Boy from Oz version of Once Before I Go. So there's a lot of sentimental feelings about this. But what's interesting, when you see the video, Manilow is putting his own unique spin on it because he is looking at this from the perspective of saying goodbye to the life that he gave up. He gave up a normal life to pursue his music, and this song is meant for him to be his goodbye to the life that he maybe could have lived, having a normal life with a family, with a spouse and kids, but he chose not to do that. And so with that, I think that he has found such a deep emotional connection to this song. And so you can feel this on this. The orchestration is beautiful. It was produced by Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, a remarkable producer, prolific, and to our knowledge, this is the first time that they have ever crossed paths. So I really love this collaboration with Babyface. I mean, this is, like I said, the whole album is an instant classic, and this song is no exception.
So speaking of production, let's talk about the people who actually did the work on this song. Like you said, it was written by Peter Allen and Dean Pitchford, produced by Kenneth Babyface Edmonds and DeMonte Posey, something there. Drums and keyboard programming was also done by DeMonte, and Babyface played the bass on this. A man named William Ross did the string arrangement, and DeMonte also did additional orchestration arranging. The string score was produced by Mary Webster, the strings music prep was done by Aaron Schumann, and percussion was played by Paul Boughton. So it's interesting that we're talking about Yesterday Meets Today. I love this, where we have a modern record and we have liner notes. This is so fascinating to me. I love digging through these liner notes, and it's kind of a lost art. I've heard so many stories from people who were around in the 70s and the 80s. They would rush out to buy an album, and the first thing they would do is read the liner notes. And that's kind of a lost fascination, I think, and I'm so happy that we talked about that on this show. So those are the people that worked on Once Before I Go. Now, Barry, we talked about Once Before I Go on our preview episode about this album. Go check that out if you want to see our old predictions about stuff. But now, for the first time ever on the Manilow Method, we are going to talk about a brand new Barry Manilow song for the first time. This is the title track of the record. It's called What a Time. It was written by Barry Manilow and John Bettis. That's a name we're going to see pop up all over this record. It was produced by Michael Lloyd. That's another name that we're going to see a lot on this record. It was arranged by Barry Manilow, engineered by Michael Lloyd and a man named Bob Kearney. It was mixed by Michael Lloyd, and this is very awesome. Manilow himself played the piano on this song. Now, this song is actually quite old. It's a new release, but it's actually quite old. In fact, we have so many documents, you wouldn't even believe how many documents of research that we have stacked up in our folders. But we have a document here that has every copyright date, or at least copyright year, of the songs from this album. And this is fascinating. We're going to take you on a journey through this. This song was first registered on August 26th, 1982. This is so wild. It says date of creation 1982. So this song is over 40 years old. It was registered for a second time on April 9th, 1985. So we think potentially there were some significant changes to the song made that made them register it a second time. And we know for sure that this song was performed in 1987 at the American Cinematheque Awards. Manilow did a short performance honoring Bette Midler, and this is a song that he performed. So we know it's been played live once, which leads me to believe, hello all of our European viewers, if you're going to see him in the UK, there's a chance this could get done. I don't know, because there's an arrangement for it collecting dust somewhere, so let's see if they've shaken the dust off of it. But this song, I really think, deserved to be the title track. As I was listening to the album, I was thinking, were there any other songs that maybe could have been the title cut? I do think that this is the correct choice. This is Manilow at his best. It starts with a piano intro. There's a key change at the end. And in fact, for all of our viewers on Facebook and YouTube, we're going to insert a clip right here of the first time Barry and I listened to this song. Barry correctly predicted that there was going to be one key change, and it was up a half step. Here's that clip right now.
I'm going to make a guess. I think there's going to be one key change. It's going to be a half step up. Yep, we're right.
So, Barry, my hat is to you. You got that one correct. This song is so good. That key change got me in my feelings. At the ending, he goes, "What a time!" He hits this high F sharp, which is crazy for modern range. For him to be in his 80s and hitting those notes is fantastic. Barry, what are your thoughts of the title track?
Oh my, Logan. Yes. So I will say that melodic interval, what a time, that is sticking with me. That has stuck with me from the moment I heard it for the first time in the preview video that Manilow released, where he gave at least snippets of the songs, if not full performances of the songs. And it's just magnificent. The sentiment of the lyrics are just so beautiful. And to pull on that thread about Bette Midler, I'm wondering if he is still, using Bette Midler as the image in his mind when he's singing this song, because it clearly was on his mind in the 1980s when he performed it that one time at the America Cinematheque Awards. Well, actually, I need to add something interesting to that performance. Before he started to play What a Time, we have record that he actually performed Stephen Sondheim's Old Friends. That is the first documented instance of him performing that song live, and it was before he recorded it on the Showstoppers Broadway Covers album in 1991. So with that, I'm thinking that he's really reminiscing about that time with Bette Midler. At least that's what we're speculating. But John Bettis, let's talk about John Bettis for a second.
Yes.
He is a legendary lyricist. He has written lyrics such as Human Nature for Michael Jackson, Top of the World for the Carpenters, and in the 1980s, he had a partnership with Barry Manilow, a songwriting partnership, and it produced some fan-favorite songs like Fools Get Lucky on the If I Should Love Again album. And he also wrote You're My Only Girl, Jenny, which was released on 1989's compilation Greatest Hits Volume 2. And again, those are fan favorites, and this album reveals to us that the collaboration between Barry Manilow and John Bettis is way more extensive than we previously realized. Of course, if you look at the copyright registration database, you'll see a lot more. And actually, I know that a few of our viewers know this, but I don't think a lot of you know this. But there's actually another John Bettis collaboration that was released that kind of slipped under the radar. George McRae recorded a song called Out of Nowhere Into My Life that was written by Barry Manilow and John Bettis. It's a disco song. And so go look it up. You can probably find that. So, like I said, that collaboration with John Bettis and Barry Manilow was way more extensive than we initially realized. But this song just... Again, the sentiment is beautiful, the chords, the melody, everything that Barry Manilow contributed to set the melody and the arrangement is just so stunning. And like you mentioned, Logan, the fact that Barry Manilow is playing the piano on this record, I think gives all of these songs a special emotional connection that it would not otherwise have, because he's brought on many records in the past some really fantastic and talented piano players who play really amazing parts. But I just think there's this emotional connection that we get. I think there's this emotional connection that we get that is deeper when Barry Manilow is actually playing the piano to this song. And I, for one, again, I don't know, I don't have any inside information. It's only speculation on my part, but I think it would be really interesting if he did whip out What a Time in at least one of his concerts, maybe as an encore. It's just something to mark the moment. I think that of all the songs, this particular song has a chance of maybe being performed live. We shall certainly see. But nevertheless, we have this beautiful studio recording. It was very well done. And like I said, another classic that I'm sure that Logan, you and I will eventually work into our live shows. Maybe, when we play restaurants, sometimes we have people come up to us and they request songs. And lately, sometimes Manilow Method viewers come into our shows, and they've come into mine and they ask for songs. Maybe I will be inevitably performing this song, What a Time, in one of those shows. I hope I do.
So leading back to maybe What a Time could be an encore, we know he's led into it with Old Friends before, and it's been very popular for him in past decades to do Old Friends into the song Forever and a Day. So maybe we could see a pairing of Old Friends and What a Time come back.
Maybe.
Subscribe to our YouTube, follow our Facebook for more set list ideas. And I want to mention one more thing about this song. In 1992, he put out a box set, which is a huge collection of recordings that we knew and a bunch of vault recordings. And we found in the copyright database a whole dump of songs that were registered in early 91. And we're speculating here, tinfoil hat everybody, we're speculating that this whole dump of songs that we found registered in early 91 were songs that maybe potentially, if they weren't considered for the box set, they at least wanted to have record of them in case they put them on the box set. And this song was a part of that group. So there could have been potential he was considering putting this on the box set. But alas, we've heard it now, so we're fine either way, right? All right, let's move on here. Track number 3 is Sunshine. You may originally know it as You Make the Sunshine. It was written by Barry Manilow and Gary Barlow. Our UK fans certainly know that name. This song was produced by David Benson, Greg Bartheld, and Manilow himself. And once again, Manilow plays the piano on this one, and we get a little cameo on the ukulele and the guitar from Mr. Ken Barry. That's another name that shows up throughout the Manilow discography as well. So this is such a feel-good song. Although, as I'm sure we'll probably mention here, The lyric can be taken in a number of ways, and we have a conspiracy theory that we're going to mention here at some point about a certain music video that they put out for this song. But Barry, first, give me your initial thoughts on. There's an old version of this song sung by Gary Barlow. Now we have a new version sung by Manilow. What do you think? How do they hold up to each other?
I think they complement each other very well. And when I first heard this song, because again, we heard the Gary Barlow version in 2020. That's when it was released. And when I heard it, I felt the essence of Manilow on the song. Well, actually, it's not a coincidence because Barry Manilow actually played the piano on Gary Barlow's cut of this. And so I kept wondering to myself, what would Manilow sound like singing this? And of course, we got our answer. And funny enough, before they dropped the Sunshine single, they put this little teaser on social media, and all you heard was the whistle. And so many started speculating what that could be. But I immediately recognized that's the Gary Barlow song. So I knew that is what we were going to hear. And the way this unfolded, this particular recording, this is an amazing production. It's such a feel-good track. Let's talk musically for a second. It's a feel-good track. A lot of people, reviewers, fans in the comments, have drawn parallels to this song and Can't Smile Without You, and I think that's a correct comparison to draw because, it has that bouncy feeling. It also has a whistle in it. So yes, there are a lot of similarities, but I think let's start really digging in here. Now let's talk about the lyrics. When it comes to lyrics, one of the things we would recommend is that you check out the Gary Barlow version because the lyrics are slightly different in a few ways. And so if you want to hear a little bit of a different spin on the song and you only heard the Manilow version, definitely check out the Gary Barlow version. And so when you listen and you really pull these lyrics apart, here's the question that I have for you, dear viewer. Is this a happy song? Is it a happy song? Because if you listen to the music, it feels good. And when I look at some of these lyrics, it really has a theme about distance. I don't think that person is anywhere close. I don't get that sense that they're holding the essence of someone in their hearts and in their mind. But physical distance is a thing. They're physically distant from the characters, what the character's singing, and the subject of the song. So I like to believe that there might be a little bit of a mournful quality to this song. And again, I think this is something that I hope will prompt some discussion and some comments. We'd love to hear what you think on this song. What's your feeling about this track? What sentiment do you get out of the lyrics when you listen to the lyrics or read the lyrics? And I think that's what's kind of interesting is that when you have such a happy, bouncy track, you can contrast that with lyrics that are slightly ominous in a way. And so with that all being said, I did want to mention musically, I think that there's a lot of an homage to Burt Bacharach in the sense that there are songs like Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head and They Long to Be Close to You that I think there's some elements that kind of wink and nod to Mr. Bacharach, who, is one of the greatest composers of the 20th century, hands down. And so I feel that Burt Bacharach was an incredible inspiration to Barry Manilow. So I think it's a natural choice to really throw back to a time and place when that kind of feel-good music that, Burt Bacharach created has a place now in the 2020s. And so I really like this track. I hope that this really travels far and wide. And again, I think this one is another good candidate to make its way into the set list, at least for the period of promoting this album. And also, it would be interesting if the fact that Gary Barlow and Barry Manilow wrote this together. It would be interesting if one day, if they got together and they sang it together. I would love to see that if that ever could be arranged. I'm sure that would be such a great thing to have performers of two different generations that have been interconnected now for decades. Because for those who don't know who Gary Barlow is, he is in a vocal group called Take That. They've been around since the 1990s. And Take That had a hit single in the United Kingdom by covering Could It Be Magic by Barry Manilow, except they did a dance version that is fairly similar to the Donna Summer disco version of Could It Be Magic. And of course, if you see Manilow's live act, you would know that Could It Be Magic was done as a ballad originally, and then other people, starting with Donna Summer, covered it as an up-tempo record. And I love the quip Manilow always says in concert. He says, when Donna Summer decided to do a disco version of Could It Be Magic, I didn't know if I liked it. But then it went to #1, and I loved it immediately. and as a result, he then goes on to perform his own dance version of Could It Be Magic. And I think that it was the Take That version that really inspired Manilow to start doing his own dance version. So like I said, Barry and Gary Barlow are interconnected, and it was a real surprise, a delightful surprise to see Barry and Gary collaborating. And I like to say, I hope they might have some time to do some more collaboration, because this was a great collaboration.
I think the best way to sum up this song is the guy singing the song is trying to be happy about a sad subject. I think that's the best way to sum this up. And now our conspiracy theory here, when they put out Sunshine, they put out a doggy music video for it. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your seatbelts on. Since What a Time we think may be attributed to Bet, we think it might be possible that Sunshine is attributed to Bagel, Manilow's Beagle in the early years of his career. In fact, I've got one of his albums, I believe it's Trying to Get the Feeling.
Yes.
The Bagel's on the back of it. And Bagel's always thanked in the liner notes, and it's like Bagel was a big part of his life. So, I don't know. Let us know if we're, just reaching for straws here, but I think there might actually be some substance in that guess. So now, this might be the longest episode we've ever done. Let's go on to track 4. This is a reworking of a song that we already knew from the Manilow catalog. This is Another Life 2026, and actually in the liner notes, now that we actually have a physical copy of it, it says, based on the original 1991 recording. And it says that the 1991 recording was produced by Barry Manilow and Bob. We're assuming that Bob is potentially a person that didn't want their name on it or something. We don't know. But Bob and Barry Manilow produced the original 1991 recording. This was written by Andrew Hill and Preston Sturgis, and the modern version was produced by Barry Manilow and Michael Lloyd. Ring the bell, Michael Lloyd's back again. It was arranged by both of them, Barry Manilow and Michael Lloyd. Michael Lloyd and Bob Kearney did the engineering. It was mixed by Michael Lloyd. Digital editing was done by Bob Kearney, and the drums, bass, guitar, and keyboards, and the background vocals were all done by Michael Lloyd. So that's something I want to bring up right now is, while we are getting vault songs and songs that were written a long time ago, the production being mainly handled by Michael Lloyd on this album, the biggest goal with having that consistent producer on each track, that screams to me that instead of just putting out songs from the vault, they wanted to take good songs from the vault but make them all sound cohesive on one new record. So I've seen some divided opinions on like the sounds of some things, but I think overall it works for the album because it makes each song sound like it came from the same project, even though some songs are 4 years old and some songs are 40 years old. So I really respect that they were able to put that work into all of these songs and make them sound like they're from one cohesive project. I love the version of this from 1992. I love the version of this from 2026. I will listen to both of them now. My ears have grown accustomed to the changes in each, and I think they both do stand on their own. And it's such a great lyric, and it's such a great melody. I really do think my favorite part of the song is the ending. The ending gets me every single time. Barry, you grew up on this song. This was like a new song when you were a very tiny human. So what was it like for you seeing this song get reworked over 30 years later?
Yeah, I have to say, I have a biased opinion when it comes to this song. Because like you said, I grew up with this song being the most contemporary example of Manilow making a record for today. Because as many people know, throughout the 90s, he really did not release hardly any original music. Now, he wrote a lot of original music, such as Harmony, but that wasn't heard far and wide unless you got to see the production they did down in California in 1997. So unless you actually got to see that, you were not really getting to experience many Manilow originals. Now, of course, this is not a Manilow original, but this is a song that Manilow introduced to the world. Andy Hill, by the way, one of the co-writers, he actually wrote Keep Each Other Warm for the Barry Manilow self-titled album in 1989, which we like to refer to as the Purple Album. I think this was a Clive pick, so what this song's inclusion on the album symbolizes is the return to the status quo. When Barry Manilow began his career and he got with Arista Records, he had a contract where he had a contractual obligations to include 2 songs that Clive picked. So therefore, putting Once Before I Go and Another Life on this album is a throwback to that original arrangement. There are officially 2 Clive picks on this particular album. Now, when it comes to Another Life, I will say we've been reading comments, and actually we've gotten quite a volume of inquiries asking us to comment on this track and what elements are the same as the box set 1992 version and what is new. So first, let's start with the vocals. We don't have anything to say definitively what is what, but we're using our ears. We're giving you our best guess. We are 99.9% certain in what we're about to say that the vocals you hear are the same vocals that were used on the box set. There are a few instruments that you hear. You hear some guitars that I believe were on the original, but they're turned down a lot. What is particularly new to the 2026 version of Another Life are the drums. There's a little bit of extra piano at the beginning that you don't hear on the original record. And I think the background vocals are the same as those on the box set 1990s version, but it's just mixed and presented differently. And as I've really sat with this and listened to it, I really feel like I'm glad that this song is being given a second chance, because it was a beautiful song when it came out, and I was a bit sorry that it did not get heard more widely outside of the box set or the initial shows of the accompanying tour where Manilow put this in the set list. And when it comes to Another Life, one thing I wanted to comment, Logan, you and I have talked about this a little bit off air, but Another Life, in our view, is an extension of Read 'Em and Weep, because both of those songs, Read 'Em and Weep was a single Barry Manilow released in 1983. It was written and produced by Jim Steinman. It was an epic rock ballad, and Another Life seems to be in that same vein. So for anybody out there who really likes Read 'Em and Weep, I think you're really going to enjoy Another Life. You know, the lyrics are using interesting words like, for example, solitary, I watched you walk away, you made your mind up, or my mind is just went completely blank on what I was going to say on these, but words like arbitrary, solitary, it just seems like this could have been something Jim Steinman would write, and so it was right up his alley. And So this is almost like a Read 'em and Weep Part 2 in a way. Maybe some of you might see it that way. But, love to hear what you think about this song. But I will say, when people are commenting on which song on this album is their favorite, there were a lot of comments that people say Another Life was their favorite on this album. So this is definitely a high point for a lot of people. And I hope that we really kind of went into the depth that people were hoping we would go into just by going through and really confirming what we thought was the elements that is new to it in this new album and what are the old elements. I would say definitely the vocals, definitely some of the guitars, but the drums, the drums are definitely the element that's new, and they're more aggressive, they're more in your face, and so I think this really tries to emphasize that rock and roll essence of this song. And like I said, I'm just glad that this song is getting a second chance because it deserves it.
I really hope you leave that moment in with the big words in the song, because that was one of the most golden moments we've ever had on this show. That was fantastic. All right, and I really hope people get to see this interaction right now, too. We're just two people, guys. This is how we talk on the phone all the time. You just get to see it and listen to it. So let's go to track number 5. This is Touched by an Angel, written by Barry Manilow and Bruce Sussman. Let's go back to the copyright database for this track, because my, when they announced that this song was going to be on the album, the first thing I did was look at the copyright database to see when it was from. It says date of creation was the year 2007. It was registered April 27th, 2007. And if you have seen our show before, you know that in 2007 he was in the midst of his Music and Passion residency at the Las Vegas Hilton, presently the Westgate, where he still has a residency. But that is my favorite live era of Barry Manilow. So when I saw that we were getting a Music and Passion era original Manilow song, I flipped out, because it was nothing but Decades stuff. It was nothing but Decades stuff. And I'm so happy that he was still writing in this era. And it's him and Bruce Sussman, and it's such a good lyric. I want to tell you who played on this, because it's awesome. Written by Barry Manilow and Bruce Sussman. Produced by Barry Manilow and Michael Lloyd. Ring-a-ding-ding. It was co-produced by Greg Bartheld. Arranged by Barry Manilow. Mixed by Michael Lloyd and Greg Bartheld. And additional engineering by Greg Bartheld. Piano played by Barry Manilow, Michael Lloyd, and Ron Walters Jr. What's up, Ron? This is fantastic. I saw his name pop up, and I was like, oh, wow, he was on it. And then I kept scrolling and realized that the entire Music and Passion cast is on this song. Ron Walters Jr. played piano. Ron Pedley and Joey Malati played keyboards. Ian Martin played the bass. Mike Lent played the guitar. David Rosenblatt played percussion. Monica Page, Melanie Taylor, Keely Vasquez, and Kai Brackett all sang background vocals. What's important to mention here is who is missing from the Music and Passion cast. The live horn section of Music and Passion is missing, and Russ McKinnon on drums is also missing, which makes me think maybe there's a version with them on it. They just, again, with Michael Lloyd coming in to modernize the sound, Michael Lloyd played the drums, and he also played some guitar and bass. So I think they took the original stems from the Music and Passion team's recording, and Michael Lloyd inserted those modern elements into the song. And also, there's a gospel choir on this. The choir was under the direction of Vanachel Faget. And what's very interesting, and we learned this from the preview video that Manilow put out, the reason that this song is so gospel-tinged is Manilow and Sussman wrote this for it to be considered for Whitney Houston's last album. My jaw hit the floor when Manilow dropped that on us in the preview video. So not only was he still writing during Music and Passion, he was writing for some big names during Music and Passion. So this song, I had kind of an idea where it was going to go. I knew there had to be modulations in it because it's a choir. It was written for Whitney. There had to have been some sort of modulation. But I don't think we were quite expecting how the modulations were going to go. For our actual visual viewers, visual viewers, we're going to insert a clip right now of our reaction to the modulations. Check it out. What? Are we at A?
Yes. Wait, we're back.
We'll be there for you over and over and over and over again.
What just happened?
Oh my gosh.
There were
I lost count of how many times it changed keys.
they would change keys for like 3 measures and then go back to E. Because he was in G flat for a bit, then he was back in E, then he was in...
Right. Oh
Okay,
my gosh.
That's going to take a few listens just to get the roadmap. My mind is still spinning because of all these modulations. There's so many. I think this is easily in the top 10 of the Manilow catalog, most key changes in one song. It is crazy how many times it shifts, and I can only imagine what it was like for the choir to have to learn this. It goes all over the dang place. Barry, what do you think of this one?
Well, I mean, this album touched me, no pun intended, but right. And so yeah, you just watched that clip, and we had excerpted that and we put that out as a short clip, and it went viral because Logan and I, you saw it, we fell out of our chairs nearly because we could not believe how much the key kept changing, especially at the end. It was almost as if he was messing with us. He knew that we were curious. Oh, is he going to change the key? Well, he did many, many, many times. No, I actually think statistically that may be the most modulations in any Manilow song ever in the catalog. Again, tell us in the comments if you could think of one that does more modulations. Sometimes there'll be 4 modulations in a song like Sweet Heaven, or in the case of Look to the Rainbow from Showstoppers, there's 5 modulations in that particular song. But I think Touched by an Angel, might take the crown. And I think that everything about this song is amazing, from the arrangement, the lyrics, the vocal performance. The vocal performance is just fantastic. And for what it's worth, I do want to say that the vocal performance, I think, came from the Music and Passion era, because we, like Logan has said, especially Logan, loves that Music and Passion era. And when we hear that vocal, it sounds very similar to what you hear on, say, the greatest songs of the 60s. So if you listen to that particular album, Greatest Songs of the 60s, and then you go and listen to this Touched by an Angel, I think you'll agree that the vocal quality is very close to the same. So that's what we are going to speculate on. But again, having the Music and Passion cast in this, and so that's something funny. We want to set up another clip from when we were watching or listening to the premiere of What a Time, the album. So we were talking about, wouldn't it be interesting if the Music and Passion cast was actually on this recording? Watch us predict it, and then watch what happens when we go ahead and expose the credits to ourselves. Watch this.
So I'm interested when we're done with the song to see if any of the Music and Passion cast members were involved in the creation and playing of it. That's what I'm interested to see.
Well, here's the thing. In that time in 2007, at the Greatest Songs of the 70s, he was using his Music and Passion cast members for the studio records because, out of necessity, they were in a rush to get that album done. So they just went into a studio in Vegas and cut that. And I think this might have been cut during the Greatest Songs of the 70s sessions, perhaps.
Guitar!
Wow.
If that's Mike Lent, I'm going to freak out. Okay, are we ready to open the credits for this?
I'm ready. Let's take a look at it.
All right. Bruce Sussman, Michael Lloyd. Holy...
Oh! We called it!
It's the whole band!
Oh my gosh.
It's the whole band. Okay. Michael Lloyd playing bass, electric guitar, piano, and drums. Monica Page, Melanie Taylor, Keely Vasquez, Kai Brackett, background vocalist, Ron Walters Jr. piano, Ron Pedley electric piano, Joe Melotti electric piano, Ian Martin bass guitar, Mike Glenn electric guitar, David Rosenblatt percussion. That is,
Wow.
with the exception of the horn section and Russ McKinnon on drums, that is the Music and Passion cast.
Yes, it is. Wow.
Wow. I love it.
I'm blown away. Like, that was so spectacular.
Wow.
Now, here's something interesting. Michael Lloyd is credited as playing drums on this one. But actually, so this is interesting. Ian Martin is credited for bass guitar, and it says here, this is Spotify, what it's saying,
Right.
that Michael Lloyd played bass guitar. So I'm wondering if Michael Lloyd, production-wise, made a couple changes to the original version.
Maybe, yeah, because I feel like since everybody's on this, there's got to be a version with Russ McKinnon on drums. But maybe they had Michael Lloyd redo the drums just to make it sound a little more cohesive with the rest of the album.
I mean, we could not believe that this was the Music and Passion cast. Again, what a great band they were. They had such great chemistry together, and I'm so glad that finally we actually have a studio recording with almost all of them on it.
Yeah, I would also like to mention that a good portion of the modern lineup, if you go see Manilow in concert this summer, this fall, a lot of them were in the Music and Passion cast, and I think that's a testament to just how fun it has to be to work with Barry Manilow, as so many of these people have stuck around for so many years. And again, I'm so happy that we actually have a recorded instance of all of them in the studio together. This is one of my favorite songs on the album. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe we're doing this right now. What is this? Track 6? Track 6 is called The Chosen One. This is, confirmed multiple sources, a song that was written for Here at the Mayflower. And if you've seen us before, you will know that Barry and I both agree that Here at the Mayflower is the greatest original work of Barry Manilow ever. No matter the decade, we think that is his opus. So, this song I was so excited to hear because we know that, check it out, copyright, we're prepared. Here we go. Copyright says date of creation is the year 2000, and it was registered on October 16th, 2000. So this song is 26 years old this year, but once again, Michael Lloyd comes in and modernizes the production, but you still hear a lot of what we are assuming to be Mayflower sounds, some synth sounds. We think the vocal is from that era. I think Barry and I both agree on that. And this song is so good. This is another song, just like the new version of Another Life. I've been seeing a lot of people saying this is their favorite. And my response to that is, well, it was written in like the best Manilow era ever. Of course it's going to be a great song. I want to hear every song that was written for the Mayflower, but each one we get, we absolutely treasure, because I have yet to hear a song that I don't like from that era. He was truly on fire, performance-wise and writing-wise. And it's important to mention that this song is completely self-written. There's no other writers. Music and lyrics by Barry Manilow. It was produced by Ralph Churchwell, Michael Nielsen, who we'll talk about a bit later, Alan Savery II, Michael Lloyd, and Barry Manilow. 5 producers on this song. It was arranged by Barry Manilow, mixed by Tony Shepard. Keyboards were played by Ralph Churchwell, one of the producers, and Michael Lloyd. Bass was played by Reggie Hamilton and Michael Lloyd. Guitars were played by Michael Nielsen. Drums were played by Kurt Biscara and Michael Lloyd, and the background vocals were Alan Savery II and Michael Lloyd. So there are a lot of people going into this song, which makes me think all of the people, or the majority of the people not named Michael Lloyd or Michael Nielsen, were on the original Mayflower sessions, and then the modern takes were done to bring it the booming sound that this record has. Barry, any day we can listen to a Mayflower cut for the first time is a good day. What do you think of The Chosen One?
Well, I think it's definitely a high point of the album, and I know that many people in the comments section have said that this is their favorite. So I know a lot of viewers watching and listening to us really feel that this is their favorite. And what I would say in terms of pinning down when was this created, what I would ask everybody to do is go listen to the song Welcome Home from Here at the Mayflower. Listen to the first few bars of it, and then go turn on this song, The Chosen One, and tell us that you don't think that they were done at relatively the same time. And I didn't really expect how deep this song was going to be. This is, this is one of those, I guess, I'm going to use a phrase, pardon the expression, but it's a phrase Manilow uses. This is one of those your wrist songs. And Barry Manilow, once in the 90s, he did what was called a medley, and he would do songs like I've Never Been So Low on Love from the Paradise Cafe album. This song fits into that vein very well, and I think that's why people are responding so strongly to this. This is really very emotional, this particular song. And I actually really love when Manilow tries to write lyrics, because he has a unique voice that only he has. And the words that he uses are really unique. Like, for example, he uses the word equilibrium. He says, my equilibrium is gone. On paper, I'm not sure how that would work, but he somehow makes that work really well. And it really makes you lean in and realize, wow, he's describing something very profound. And so when I'm listening to this track, when we listened to it for the first time, it really was, it was shocking. We didn't realize how deep this was going to be. And then it's capped off at the end by this wailing guitar. And so this is not just Manilow doing what he is known to do, but he's doing it in a very contemporary context. And I think that Michael Lloyd really helped to anchor this in a more modern way with his production. It's very explosive, but it's also very sweeping. It has every element of a Barry Manilow ballad, but this doesn't sound like something that came out of the 1970s or 80s. It sounds like it's happening today. But this song just, again, it's just devastating that this is he says, this is a crime for all time. The fact that you've chosen another one when I was the chosen one, you can't help but feel, wow, that's a very deep thought. And so one thing I want to say is we need to stick a pin in this because we don't have all the time to talk about this, but our big question is, where would this have fit into Here at the Mayflower? Which apartment was intended to sing this song? Again, we don't have enough time to really scratch the surface even about what that could be. But one thing I will point out is a lot of people actually picked up on this, but the melodic intervals into the verse reminds people of Say Goodbye from Here at the Mayflower, because the very first line of the second verse, for example, of Say Goodbye is, I take you back, and it's from the start, I knew. Same basic interval, so that's why people started thinking of Say Goodbye. And it's quite possible, now again, this is speculation on our part, The Chosen One might have possibly been cut from the album, and then Say Goodbye was written with a few elements in it that belonged to a song that was discarded. So that could be very well possible, that Say Goodbye took The Chosen One's place on the album. But the last thing I want to mention about this is that if any of you happen to be listening to the Dolby Atmos version, it's a new way of mixing records to not just be limited to 2 channels of sound, which traditional stereo records have been since the 1960s. It's 2 channels, a left and a right. Dolby Atmos is more of a surround experience, and it's mixed differently than traditional stereo records. But if you have a service like Apple Music is one, for example, that will stream the music in Dolby Atmos mixes, I was listening, and it's actually quite a bit different. in Dolby Atmos because there's different keyboard effects. There's this detuned keyboard that you hear right at the beginning that you don't hear on the stereo version. There's an organ. There's much louder background vocals, and there's more overdubbed drum sounds, explosive drum sounds that are overdubbed onto the track in the Dolby Atmos version. So go look that up if you happen to have that available to you. But I just wanted to point that out, that there's another perspective of this floating around. And so the last thing I'll say is this about The Chosen One. We still have the curiosity of what would it have sounded like on the Mayflower? What was the original mix? What was the original production like? But I'm sure there's a lot of similarities, and I'm pretty sure it will be the same vocal performance that you hear on this What a Time album in 2026.
My big thing about the original version, though, is how did it end? Because you listen to the ending, these big bombastic drums, these screaming guitars, all these riffs happening. That is so modern Michael Lloyd production. How did this song originally end is what I want to know. And also, what were the drum sounds? What vibe did this song take on the Mayflower? Because Say Goodbye is a little more of a subdued song. So we think if Say Goodbye replaced The Chosen One, maybe The Chosen One was a little more subdued and they made it an actual power ballad for this album. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have to put a pause on this because this is now about an hour in for us, and we still have half the album to go. So we're going to pause right now. We would love it if you found us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and you followed us and subscribed and liked the posts and comment your thoughts. We love hearing from every one of you. We have an email address. It's the Manilow Method at gmail.com. You can reach out to us there as well. And we're going to pause for now and then come at you here sometime later this week with part 2, talking about Barry Manilow's new album, What a Time. I'm Logan Allen. That is Barry Harris. We are the Manilow Method. We'll see you very soon.